what's up, y'all? We are back with We Do It For Our Kids, a dope collaboration between Black Fathers Now and Fatherhood is Lit. I am your man, Coach Mike D, and I'm gonna throw it over to my man, James.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm James, representing for all the dope dads of the Fatherhood is Lit community and fatherhood community in general. So thank you all for coming. Yo, Mike, man, I'm sorry to do this, but I want to take over this call real quick because it's something that I've been dealing with all week. That I talked about it a little bit in stories, and I got a lot of messages about it, right? So I would like to walk you through this and then hear your thoughts, man. Hear how you would how you've dealt with certain things. You know what I mean?
Let's go.
So first of all, man, you know, I had a doctor's appointment. I had a lump on my head, on my right side of my head up here somewhere, right? And I disregarded it. I disregarded it for months, man. I would almost damn near say maybe a year. You know, when they ask me how long I've had it, I really don't know. I only know because my wife and my barber told me, yo, you got a bump on your head. Like, and it's not a bump, it's not a pimple, it's like a lump, right? So I finally went to the doctor to go check it out, and the doctor told me, yo, we got to get you under, like, we gotta put you to sleep. You know, we got to do an MRI, we got to do a CAT scan. We're gonna have to put you to sleep, and we got to take out this mass that's in your head, because if you don't take it out, it'll push against your bone, and it could cause severe eye damage or worse. It could do other things. It's right on the temple. It's called something like a meningioma or something like that. People that watch like Dr. Pimple Popper, they probably know exactly what this is. It's like a piece of like pus or mass. Not life-threatening, which is beautiful. But I wanted to talk about, you know, us as we getting older. When we were younger, we used to say, yo, we'll do anything, right? Like, we could try anything and we won't get hurt. Now, as we get older, we kind of get hurt, man. And we still kind of like hide it. And this is something I hid from my family until this week. I would love to flip that over to you. Why do you think a lot of fellas, when they get sick or something, when it comes to their health, why do you think they hide it?
Dude, I'm gonna tell you, I think a lot of it really stems from societal pressures and societal norms of being a man, right? So if you can remember growing up, you know, if you fall and you scrape your knee, man, shut up and get up and stop crying. Stop crying like a baby. Stop acting like a girl.
Before I make you cry.
Before I make you cry, right? Or it was a scenario in which, and I'm not even saying like from a parent, I'm just saying just societal pressures in general. It's like, as a dude, you're not supposed to cry. We're supposed to be Superman. And part of that is because of this whole hero's journey narrative that as men, we're supposed to be infallible. We're supposed to be Teflon. We're supposed to be, you know, the Teflon Don, so to speak, right? Like, you can't break me. You know, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. All those stuff that we heard growing up. And what we've come to realize is that's unhealthy and that's untrue, because for a lot of guys, that causes us to push health outcomes down the road or kick the can on things as far as like getting diagnosed or getting things checked out, because, oh, I can deal with just a little bit of pain, just a little bit of discomfort, or, oh man, it ain't that big. And then you come to realize this is something life-threatening, right?
So we psych ourselves out. We psych ourselves out a little bit then.
I think some of it is psych out. I think some of it is playing into what we think it means to be a man, right?
Okay, because for me, it had nothing to do with that. Like, for me, I hid it from my family because I didn't want them to worry. Like, in all honesty, it was like, yo, we got so much going on that it was like, man, you know, until I know exactly what's going on, I'm not gonna put them through that. Like, I don't want them to succumb to the pressure of, yo, what's gonna happen to dad?
But dig this though. I still think that goes back to this whole notion of subconsciously you were this infallible creature in your mind due to what it means to be a man. And you actually just stated there, you didn't want them to, you know, get off track. You didn't want them to be emotional. You didn't want them to lose sight of. So it's like, yo, I got to be strong. Meaning, for a lot of us as men, that means we have to bury our emotions, bury our pain, bury the stuff that concerns us. You know, we have to go into another room sometimes and cry because we don't want them to get, for instance, it was interesting. I was noticing something, and this was years ago. So when we were watching, I think it was after stuff was happening with George Floyd in 2020, and something, you know, it was all over the news. And I remember it came on, and my little girl at the time, she was like 8, but it got her in a sense of, she was just like, that happened to a man that kind of looks like my daddy, and she started crying, right? I mean, she just started crying because it's like it registered with her. But then, because she started crying, then my wife started crying. You know what I'm saying? It's just like this whole trigger thing.
That's
And
what I don't
then,
want to see.
and
That's
and that's
exactly what I want to see.
and so to that point, as a man and as a father, you want to guard yourself from creating situations like that because you want to try to minimize the pain of other people. So what that means sometimes is, or minimize the pain of your family. So what that sometimes means is we take on unnecessary pain or unnecessary trauma or unnecessary challenges just to shield them from it. And I think that's just how we're wired. And so to your point there, if I also know that if I ever get emotional, oh, it's a chain reaction because they're like, well, damn, if daddy's crying, something must really be wrong.
It's over.
It's over. Like, what's happening? Do we need to go cash in a life insurance policy? I mean, what's the deal? And so I just think there's something, we're wired in a certain way, but I think part of it is just due to societal norms that we are now in a position to change due to our own experiences. And I'll give you some of my personal stuff in a second, but let me get your thoughts about that.
Well, to me, it's definitely the societal pressure, right? Because even just talking to you about it, my thought was, hey, I want to shield them, but I forgot that the reason I think like that is because society has pushed that on me for all of those years. Where my father, if he got in any trouble, we didn't know about it. It was like, yo, it just happened. And then when he would come home and if he got into a fight and he had a black eye, now I could look at him and be like, yo, what the hell happened? You know what I mean? And it's like, well, that's none of your business. Right. So I guess I've been trained that way. And one thing that really came up while I was sitting in my car after I spoke to the doctor, and the initial reaction from the doctor was, hey, we got to go test you out. So I'm still lost, where it's like, yo, I got this bump. I don't know what it is, but this doctor is moving fast. The minute she started moving fast, yo, that scared the shit out of me, bro. Absolutely. So the minute she told me, hey, you know what? I'm going to set you up for an emergency CAT scan and we're going to start working on getting this surgery done ASAP. I sat in my car and I started thinking to myself, yo, so I shielded this from my kids and my wife, but now shielding it caused more trouble because now when I'm going to speak to them about it, I'm actually worried. I wasn't worried before. Before it was more like, yo, and whatever it is, we'll handle that. But the minute I spoke to her and she told me what it could be, the possibilities of what it could be and what it couldn't be, yo, now I became Dr. MD. Like I became James Webb MD. You know what I mean? I'm doing self-diagnoses and all that and telling myself, yo, how much time do I got? You know what I mean? And it made me sit there and think about, I hid that from my kids, but it also made me think about why we do that, which is the fear factor of them getting hurt. But then it also made me think about, how do I present it to them now when I still don't have the full scope of the information, right? Where I'm still waiting for results. How do I talk to them now? And B, yo, what if I only got 24 hours to live, man? What did I teach my kids everything that I wanted to teach them? Brother, what are they going to remember? Man, and it's a weird way to think because you say, damn, that's kind of negative. Like, do I got 24 hours to think? I mean, to live, I think that's what we dads do. It's either everything is all gravy or it's going to hell. So to me, it was like, yo, until I know what's happening, yo, did I do my part? Like, did I do enough? And it's crazy because I'm so involved that I still had that thought of, yo, did I do enough? And I asked the community, I go to the community, yo, hypothetically speaking, you got 24 hours to live. What's that one lesson that you hope your kids carry on, take from you? And man, those messages were crazy, bro. Dude. It was, I hope they remember that I always loved them. I hope they remember about compound interest. I hope that they remember, some people even went crazy and say, I hope they remember that baby mama was a female dog and then let me see you. You know what I mean? it was things like that. And it was like, wow, like, I guess I got people to think, but it wasn't a happy moment for me.
It's not.
You know what I mean? Where it was like, damn, like, I don't know what's going on. Luckily for me, everything's good. All I got to do is just remove this crap. But still, it's still like one of those moments where I didn't know. And it was like, damn, 24 hours to live. So I'm going to flip that to you real quick. Before we go into like kids and so all of that, do you think you've done enough in your kid's life? Like if something was to happen to you in 24 hours, right? Do you think you did enough? Or do you think that maybe there's so much more to go?
This to me is a hard conversation, right? Because you're kind of asking someone to predict the future, right? Because we don't know what's coming down the road, and we don't know how the world's going to evolve and all of that. And if you were like Nostradamus or something, and you could project 50 years from now, what are the pressing issues? Like, I bet if you ask somebody that 50 years ago, and they didn't know what 2022 would look like, they might give you some different advice if they knew what 2022 would look like with technology and computers and the internet and all this kind of stuff. They might give some different type of advice, 50 years ago in 1972, right? So the thing is, for me, based off of like my faith and my belief structure, I do believe that everything in life happens for a reason. And I don't think that if something unfortunately were to happen to me, in the next 5 minutes, that I think that I will have done everything that I was supposed to do up until that point, right? So it's like, yes, if given more time, you can do more. But my whole thing is, you can do what you can up until the specific moment. And the only thing that we really have ownership of is the present moment. The past is water under the bridge. The future might mean 5 minutes from now is completely unpromised. All we have is right now. So my whole thing is less about, did I do enough up until this point, and more about, in this moment, am I doing what I'm supposed to do? I think about it not through the lens of, if I had 24 hours left to live, what lessons would I impart? No, I would think about, if I had 24 hours to live, what would I do for those 24 hours? Right? Like, what are the things that I would do in that specific moment? And so I always try to think about myself that for me, that's like a moral compass, right? So you think from the standpoint of, if, something were to happen to you, do you want it to happen to you coming out of a strip club somewhere? Or do you want it to happen to you coming out of some, nefarious establishment? Do you want it to happen to you consuming some stuff from, on the side of the road under a bridge? Do you want it to be that? Or would you say like, yo, if it happened at that moment, at least I know that in that present moment, I was doing what I was supposed to do. And I think if we approach each moment that way, then we should not have any regrets. Again, hindsight's 2020. We could always, flip and say, oh, I wish I would have bought Amazon with my, student refund check back in 1999, and I'd be sitting, whatever. Everybody
been paid.
Well, we ironically, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. But,
or it might not be recorded, at least.
Or it might not be recorded, right? We'll be sitting there in Bora Bora somewhere over some Mai Tais,
jumping into the water. Like, I got this car, man. I can't get it wet.
But to that point, man, so I just think so I'm just thinking it's really about the present moment and making sure that if that moment happens to me, right now, I'm doing something that matters, and my kids and my family, the people that love me, they know that, what, Mike went out doing what he was supposed to do.
Yeah. I get two things from that. Like, I get the, just sitting there thinking about that and listening to your response and listening to all the other dads' response. There's two things, right? The first thing is we never give enough, right? Mm-hmm. Where we can never give enough because, like you said, we don't know the future. So we don't know what lessons are in our brains that we need to transmit to our kids because we don't know what they're going to face later on. That's so right. You're never there enough, right? The second thing is that it reinforces why you and I believe so much in our presence, right? Mm-hmm. Where it reinforces that if every day that you can be present, if you're present and you're instilling the good things of your life, we all do bad things. Like, we all have 100%. Bad things that we show every single day. Mm-hmm. But every single day that you're with your kids, if you're giving them one good thing, then you're working on making sure that your presence is actually felt, right? Mm. Where now it's like, well, I don't need 24 hours to think about 1,000 things that I need to teach them. Those 24 hours, I might only need to just be present, like you said, because I've already been teaching them these things by being there all the time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it reinforces what I believe in, which is, your presence doesn't have to be boring, first of all, but yes, it's warranted. Like, it's needed. Mm-hmm. So if you're there, you don't have to worry about, what am I going to fulfill in 24 hours? Because you're already fulfilling that through your journey. And through that journey, you're also doing bad things, of course, but you're giving them both. You know what I mean? You're giving them both. That's what I was thinking about that day when I was there, when I was sitting in my car. I was like, hypothetically speaking, if it was 24 hours, what did I do? But what are the lessons that would pop up, right? Mm-hmm. What are the values that I have instilled while being there for the last 15, 20 years. You know what I mean?
Can
that
I
was
say
deep,
something?
bro. That was
Yeah,
deep, just sitting there, you know?
It is. It's a very deep perspective. And, you know, one of the things that I think we should be very mindful of, and you highlighted it by talking about the value of being present, is the kid. Like, we talk about lessons. I think, was it Lewis Howes always has, like, what are the three truths? He always leaves like the podcast episode with, you know, the three truths. Like, what are three things, if everything was gone, three truths that you want to leave to the world or your family or whoever. And one of the things that's interesting is, I think people remember less the words that you dictate, but they almost always remember the messages that they retrieve from how you live your life. Right. Yeah. And so I think it's trying to say, like, what's one message or what's one thing I want to teach them or one piece of advice I'd give them. Honestly, that advice is probably going to go to the wayside. But what they will never forget is how you made them feel when they fell off their bike and you were there to pick them up, or how you showed up, surprised them to come to lunch with them one day, or read to their class. Or they will always, I mean, I was sitting here earlier just thinking about my life and all these different examples. It's like, I can't remember many words of advice from anybody. But what I do remember is these experiences that 40 years ago or 35 years ago are still vividly embedded into my soul. And I think that's what's so important, not focusing so much on what I'm going to do for this or what I'm going to say or what kind of words or what kind of stuff, and make sure they got all the passwords. I mean, yeah, that's important. But what's more important is, how do you spend that last 24 hours?
Yeah.
Like, that's
I agree. I agree.
I think that's important, man. And dude, I'm gonna tell you, you even opening up this window of health and men and hiding. I think we would do a disservice to our community if we did not really go a little deeper there. You know what I'm saying? In regards to men and taking care of your health and doing diagnostic work and all this kind of stuff.
Dude, before you even go there, like, that's something that I said in my stories, where I said in my stories, yo, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I'm not gonna go tell you, yo, go be healthy, go do your exercise, eat your greens, eat your vegetables. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you to do that, because I didn't do that. And to be honest, I'm not gonna continue doing it. I'm not gonna do that either. Like, I'm not gonna flip the switch and now tomorrow I'm eating a healthy, a balanced diet every day. It doesn't happen that way. It happens when fear is instilled, right? So what I was telling people was, I'm not worried about the health side. What I will tell people is, yo, the minute you find out that something is wrong, if you really care about yourself and your kids, but mainly yourself, right? Because your kids need you, right? You go handle that. Like, when I was sitting with the doctor, she told me, how quick do you want to get this done? My answer to her, no lie at all, was, yo, I want to see my kids. Get this out of my head as soon as possible. And she laughed and she goes, James, it's not life-threatening. Like, you could delay it a little bit. And it was like, no, get it over with now. ASAP. Because you telling me it's no complications, but yo, the minute you stick me with a needle and put me to sleep, there's a chance I might not wake up. Absolutely. So yo, let's get this over with now. For like, I don't gotta worry about that. You know what I mean?
You know, but so, and it's interesting how you mentioned how once you notice something, go get it taken care of. But I'm one I'm on the team of, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of medicine. Yes, right. Yes. And it is. It is. I mean, and I spent 13 years in the pharmaceutical industry, so I've seen all the different scenarios and in and out of clinics and hospitals and rooms and it's in behind the scenes conversations. I mean, it's very much a very interesting conversation. But the reality is, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I'll even say, on a personal level, I started getting colonoscopies at 35. So fellas, a colonoscopy, to be completely honest, they take a dog on camera and they Roto-Rooter up the backside and check out your colon, right? And take pictures and all that. For
people that don't understand that, it's almost like they're violating you.
They violate you.
Or for the dads that are supermen, you know what I mean? Because some men are just supermen, and it's like, no, nobody's gonna touch my booty. And it's like, all right, man.
But good luck. Now I will tell you, there's a value add to it is they do put you to sleep and they give you propofol. And I tell you, that's the best 45-minute sleep you will ever have in your life. Okay,
you were having some good dreams.
Oh my gosh, it's just like, I mean, well, that's another conversation.
That's another topic, for another day.
Another topic. But what I'll say is, at 35, I started getting colonoscopies, and that is because we have a family history of colon cancer, right? Okay. And so, long story short, just kind of taking it back, I'm 42 now. my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, so my mom's father, passed away at 54 due to colon cancer. So when he got a colonoscopy, or when he got checked out back in 1984, at that point, it had already gotten to a point of being a problem. So it was not something that was preventative. But by the time they discovered it, basically about a year later, he was gone. Right. And so technology and, diagnostics and opportunities and all that stuff opens up the window for us to now be more preventative. And so because of that family history, him being diagnosed, I think at 53 and passing away at 54. And then my mom ended up having to get a colonoscopy as well. And they ended up finding like some precancerous polyps that they had to remove. And that was in her 40s. So then the gastroenterologist basically said, my brothers and I need to start at 35 getting colonoscopies due to the family history of colon cancer. And so I said that to say that you have a day before the procedure where you got to swallow this laxative stuff. And it's
I was going to ask you about that process, because my dad actually had that.
Yeah, that's the worst juice. Part of it is the clean out. Yeah, the worst part of it is the clean out, where it's just like you literally for 12 hours before the surgery, you basically are living next to the toilet because it's explosive. It's just a difference.
You're like a broken pipe, bro.
Oh my gosh, it is no freaking you never. I mean, you may have had the runs in your life, but you've never this.
That's like X-Lax on steroids, right? What's that chocolate? Gosh. Is it X-Lax that they use? That they use to clean out your system?
It depends. Different gastroenterologists use different scenarios, but the thing is, but I understood the whole premise of I don't want to wait until there's a problem to then get going, because again, I look at my grandfather who, passed away in 1985 when I was 5 years old, that I never really, I knew him as a young kid, but I didn't get a chance to really get to know him. I didn't get a chance for him to be around, to see me graduate from high school, potentially see me get married and have kids and see great grandkids, all of that. And I think to myself, if this were done from a diagnostic perspective a little earlier, maybe they could have caught something and maybe he would have lived another 25 years or so, and so I say that to guys, man, to first off, it goes a little deeper, really understand your family history, right? Talk to your parents.
Do you think a lot of men, do you think we disregard our family history, or do you just think that I want to use the word, I guess, we think we're tough enough that things that happen to our family just won't happen to us?
I think we just don't talk, man. I think, again, we're in this generation now, you and I, in which it's becoming more and more common for guys to open up and share deep, intimate stuff and to ask questions. I mean, you think about things like sexual issues, you know what I'm saying? Like it used to be some, hush hush thing until you look at, a certain percentage of dudes struggle with some sexual stuff, right? Or you look at, things like colonoscopies and prostate exams and all of that. It used to be something like, you don't want to talk about that, but you don't talk about it. And then somebody doesn't hear about it until it's too late, until they got a problem. And then the doctor comes in and says, all right, dude, I wish you had come in here a year earlier because we could have done something. Now get your affairs in order. And see, that's some bullshit. That is the worst, but it's a reality. And so that's why I'm very much a huge proponent of, understand your family history. Like have a conversation with your parents. Like the thing, I'm gonna throw another one at you. So when it comes to like family history, like there's a family history in my family of like glaucoma, right? So when I go to the eye doctor, or I go to the optometrist, they take like the images and all of that stuff, and they show that I have like a large cup to disc ratio, and everything is fine. My optical nerve is good, but I was asking her about, what's going on with this, and are there any things I can do to prevent glaucoma? So the question I was asking, people always say, they're like, I need something for my glaucoma. So I asked my optometrist about cannabis. No, I'm serious.
Can I do my thing? Can I do my thing?
Right? But I asked her about it, and she honestly said, there is some clinical studies that show how this helps to reduce the pressure in the optical nerve. So for someone that has glaucoma, this is a benefit to them. And for someone who might have the predisposition, reducing the pressure in the optical nerve could be a benefit. But she also mentioned there's a diminishing margin of return, meaning It's not a lot. It's just a little bit, right? And so, but again, the whole concept of understanding family history then gives you information to then go and have informed conversations. And then we don't have to guess and then hit the, oh shit, what did happen? Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so dude, literally family history, talk to your parents, blood pressure, the history of diabetes, colon cancer, any precancerous stuff, glaucoma, all these different things that may be in your family history. Be aware of it. That doesn't mean that you're going to have it, but what it does is it informs you on questions you can ask your physician so that you can put yourself in the best position to live a long, healthy life.
Yeah, I would also add to that. Like, I think, you know, for us, for like a call of action to the fathers, I would suggest you do go out there and find out your family history. And some of it is scary, man. Like some of the things you're going to hear is scary. But on the flip side of that, you know, besides getting your family history, also remember that, you know, society paints us as superheroes. Yo, we're not built like that. So if you think that because your parents were raised in a different circumstance than you were, or a different era that you were raised in, that means that you're not going to get the sicknesses that they have. Think again. Like when it comes to genetics, it's not biased. It doesn't care what time frame you're living in. It doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care who you are. If you're part of that family, you might have those same issues. So don't gas yourself into thinking that, hey, my mom had diabetes, but I don't eat candy, so it's not going to happen to me.
Well, the only thing I would say, and we have to, you know, there's two sides of that. Like there is a potential with a genetic mix for you to be more predisposed or have a higher predisposition for something to occur. That doesn't guarantee that just because my mama had it, I'm going to have it. Or just because my daddy had it, I'm going to have it.
You should just be diligent about it, man.
Yeah, because some people take it like that, where it's like, oh, my granddaddy had high blood pressure, my mama got high blood pressure, my daddy got high blood pressure, I'm gonna have high blood pressure, I'm gonna just go ahead and accept it. We don't have to go that route either, right? So there are genetic links to certain things, but that doesn't mean that you have to accept that. But you do need to be informed, because there are scenarios in which, you know, maybe you changing your lifestyle might have some positive benefits, which helps to guard against certain things. Maybe because of your higher predisposition for something, maybe there are certain things that I need to avoid because of our family history, but you don't get that until you understand. And so for a lot of people, not having that conversation, or just, I'm going to figure it out on my own, or, I'm just going to be strong and, go to the gym and do this and do that. But you need to still understand. I know I had a buddy of mine, my age, in shape, college athlete or whatever, that had a heart attack.
That happens more often than people don't. People don't understand. People don't even know.
And I'll tell you, on a personal level, for me, around the same time he had his heart attack, I thought I was having one. Right, it was crazy. So I had a couple of nights where I woke up, my heart was palpitating, it was beating hard. First night, I just drank some water, calmed down, whatever. It ended up getting better. The second time it happened, I went straight to the ER. So they hooked me up to all the different stuff. And I thought I was having a heart attack. Like I was calling the wife and texting my, mom and everybody and just pray for me, all this stuff. And long story short, it was anxiety. I had anxiety attacks and stuff due to some other stuff that was going on in life. But the reality was I at least had enough wherewithal to say, like, this shit ain't right. I need to go get something taken care of, because again, what informed me was I had a contemporary, I got a homeboy, again, great shape, athlete, all of that, who had just had a heart attack. Now he didn't die, but he had a heart attack. And so I was just like, yo, what's going on? And so we need to pay attention to our bodies, know our family history, get the doggone diagnostic stuff done, get multiple opinions too. Like you don't have to just accept, because I'll tell you, again, being from the pharmaceutical industry, you will have people who just want to throw medicines and pills and all this kind of stuff at you. You don't have to also accept that always either. Get multiple opinions, have conversations, become informed. No one will care about your health more than you will.
Yeah, I would tell dads, I would challenge them to treat their health like they would treat their kids' health. Where when you're a first-time father, right, and you have a child, the minute they start coughing, you're like, yo, what medicine can I give them? What should I take them to the hospital? Yeah, like, and then when you go to the hospital, like, yo, dude, this is a common cold, like, relax. And you're looking at them like, I can't relax. This is my child.
That's right.
So I would say treat yourself the same way. Where, when I'm sitting at that doctor's office and she tells me, hey, we just got your MRI and we see this mass, and now she's explaining to me where it's at and what we could do about it. I'm asking myself, what would I do if this was my son?
Mm-hmm.
If this was my oldest son, Jaden, what would I do? I wouldn't let him leave the hospital. It would be
Mm-hmm.
like, yo, dogs, y'all gotta go work on this right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that I guess, you know, it takes a, you know, it's the pride in us where we gotta like wait till something happens for some of us. But it was one of those situations for me where it was like, all right, let's knock this out because I want to be with my kids. And for my kids, I would knock this out ASAP. You know what I mean? If it was them, I would just get it out the way. You know?
And you think about it again, the topic, I mean, the title of our collab is We Do It For Our Kids.
Yeah.
I mean, if you stop and you think about it, we do it for our kids, and we need to do it more. Is more than just money. Is actually more than just showing up. It's actually doing it for our kids, taking care of ourselves. You know, I use a term, or I use a slogan. Self-care is not selfish. It's actually selfish to not take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, for some people, they might not think about it on that level because they think self-care, that means I need to just go and, you know, pamper myself.
Turn up.
But
I'm gonna go turn up for the weekend.
Go turn up. But I want you to think about self-care through another lens. I want you to think about self-care through the lens of being on a team, right? You know, you hear the stories about, I think LeBron spends like $1 million a year on his body, right? And I think
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but it's crazy.
It makes sense, you know, but he's worth $1 billion because of his body was a start to that. So he spends $1 million a year. I heard Russell Wilson the other day on one of the interviews stated the same thing. He said he spends upwards of about $1 million a year on his body and making sure that his body is fine-tuned, because again, that's where his brand is built off of his body. Everything else is built there. And so I think about it from the standpoint of self-care is not selfish. It's selfish to not take care of yourself. If all of a sudden LeBron said, F it, I'm going to put on 50 pounds, you know, I'm going to be high, drunk every day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to eat wrong. I'm basically going to allow myself to just let go.
Yeah.
He's being selfish because now he's not being valuable to his team. Yep. Him being in the best shape possible, him coming to play, him avoiding injury, all of that, that is him being valuable to his team. That's him actually being selfless because he's taking the time to put into himself so that he brings his best self to the table. As dads, we have to take care of ourselves, and we're actually being selfish if we do not. Dads, if you're not going to the doctor, you're being selfish. Dads, if you're not taking care of some issues you got going on, you're being selfish. Literally, dads, you must take care of yourself. You're being selfish if you do not.
It's true. I tell dads all the time, you can't take care of your kids if you can't take care of yourself. You know what I mean? Like a broken dad is no good to the family. You know what I mean? And a broken dad, I mean physically and mentally. If mentally you're broken where you can't use your thoughts to guide you or to help out the family, you're broken. You need to talk to somebody. Same thing physical. If you break your leg, then you can't go do practice with your kids anymore. You can't do basketball practice. You're hobbling all over the place. So you got to take care of yourself. But it's something that's really hard for fellas to do because of that stigma of, hey, I am Superman. We got to get off of that.
Yeah, I think that's it. But I think also sometimes we don't have perspective. So if we really pan back and we realize, I mean, the majority of those that are consuming this content are going to be in the United States of America, right? We'll have some people dabbled around the world listening, but the overwhelming majority of the audience for We Do It For Our Kids, it's going to be right here in the United States or North America, maybe some Canada as well. The thing is, we forget that we have access to preventative care. We have access to take care of our bodies. When you travel around the world and you go to different places where there's no access to opportunities, like they would literally walk 30 miles if you said, hey, you can come and get a checkup. They put things on their back and walk to go get that. Whereas we have these things, we have a minute clinic or an urgent care facility, probably, in the building you live in or at the next block, and we don't take advantage of that. And so we have to really understand that sometimes it's just about us not taking advantage of the tools and the resources that we have at our disposal. And it goes back to this whole premise of, I never want to feel like I didn't do something that I could have done, right? Yeah. And so that's something as dads, man. And again, our kids are watching. So if we want to do it for our kids, what kind of habits do we want to instill? When your little boy or your little girl is not feeling well, you want to teach them. You have health insurance for a reason. Take your little ass to the doctor and get checked out.
Pay that co-payment.
Pay that co-payment,
get it over. And it's cheaper. And it's funny because that's what I asked the doctor today. Like when I was sitting with the doctor and scheduling, when we're going to take this piece of mass out. My first question to her was there something I could have done differently? Something to identify that this was happening. And she goes, no. She goes, no, not for this case. And the reason you couldn't do this is because it's a mass that grows in your head, right? And the only way for you to see something like that is to get an MRI. And unfortunately, insurance doesn't pay for that until you need it. And it was like, damn, that sucks. Dude, but that's where your family history comes into play.
Yes.
Because you might not be able to go get a colonoscopy because it might cost you a nice deductible. But if you know that your father had it, now you're gonna go pay that deductible. You're gonna say, what? Let me go pay that. It's worth it.
So look. So it's not even about you paying it. So when people don't understand, so therefore there are different protocols in place when it comes to insurances. So your insurance might pay for a colonoscopy every 5 years starting at age 50 due to protocols, because that's what the standard of care is, right? But if you have family history, you can bypass that protocol and they can start paying for it whenever you need it. Right. And so there are certain things, if you have family history, or let's just say you do have some kind of issue with your guts, right? Then the doctor can order a colonoscopy and it would be covered by your insurance because there is either family history or there's something there that makes it a necessity for that to get done. So that goes back to the whole value prop of talking to your family and understanding. And so to your point, like MRIs, they have to have
expensive. Yeah, those stuff are expensive. Woo.
And they do all medical stuff is expensive. Like it's nothing cheap when it comes to medical care and all of that. And so that's not a detractor, because it's still cheaper to get it taken care of before than for you to let it lead to another issue, because people don't understand like the cost, when it comes to healthcare, like, okay, a procedure might cost something or whatever, but if you have to spend a couple of nights in the hospital, have you ever looked at a hospital bill for somebody who spent a couple nights? It can legitimately be six figures for you to spend 2 or 3 nights in a hospital, depending on for what scenario. So it might look like it's a lot because maybe it's a little bit on the front end or a little bit more than you expected on the front end. But I'll guarantee you the back end is going to probably be 10, 20, maybe even 100x the cost if you just want to look at it purely from a financial lens.
No, it's true, because for me, I needed a MRI and a CAT scan, right? And those things are upwards of like tens of thousands of dollars, $12,000, $13 a session, right? And that's what I told my doctor. I told him, whoa, like, so when I do this procedure, after the procedure, I need another MRI, another CAT scan. Then I need another MRI and another CAT scan in 6 months. And then a year later, I need another MRI and a CAT scan. Why wouldn't insurance let me get an MRI before I actually knew about this issue, to prevent the high costs that they're going to have to pay? Because my deductible is high, but they going to have to eat years and years and years of MRI exams, man.
But hold on. See, that's the other part to it. So it's like, it's an actuarial table, right? So it's the same thing like with car insurance, the whole premise with insurance makes money when they don't have to pay out for procedures. So a lot of times what ends up happening is they collect your deductibles on a monthly basis. And if you remember, like when all the stuff came out with the Affordable Care Act, how, it was the only way for it to go through, the insurance companies had to make it a mandate where there were healthy people involved as well. Because it's like the actuarial table, healthy people, they typically don't have to pay out as much, because healthy people maybe just go for an annual checkup, but that's about it. Whereas you look at those that are the sickest among us, or those that are dealing with the most conditions, they're going to the doctor all the time. They're getting procedures all the time. They're having to get medications and MRIs and EKGs and all these different things all the time. And each time that runs, the current insurance company's paying out. So what the insurance company wants to do is they want to have as many healthy people as possible on that plan to balance off that one really sick person. And back in the day, what used to happen was if you started running up too much or you're too sick, they would drop you from insurances. Kind of like with car insurance, you had too many wrecks, they dropping you because they're now going to lose money. So to your point, it makes sense to us for them to pay for the preventative stuff, But to them, they're looking at it like, how can they kick the can down the road? Because maybe you won't need it. Yeah, we might, our bet might show, might not pay off. So we end up having to pay for 5 of them instead of just paying for one a year earlier. But that's like a 1 in 50 case. They got some kind of algorithm they figured that thing out with. So it's an interesting perspective, and it's a good conversation for us to have. But the reality is, use it, and who cares about the insurance? Take care of yourself. It's selfish for you to not take care of yourself. Don't think about it through the lens of money. I know it's hard not to. Take care of yourself, because money ain't gonna matter if you're not here.
Yeah, no, that was my whole thing. My whole thing was, man, like I wish I would have known this was happening earlier. Mm-hmm. But this is going back to what we spoke about earlier about health and everything. There are going to come times when a father is going to be presented with something, an illness or some type of sickness or something that's happening that you can't prepare for. That you can't do anything beforehand. You can't get exams beforehand. For those situations, when those things pop up, then you just got to look at your kids and say, I want to be around for them. Let me knock this out. Whatever it takes. And that was the way I felt, doing all of this. And now, I guess the next question for me, because I know we're pretty close to our limit here, our time limit. I would ask, how do you, for your case, right, when you started doing the colonoscopies, right, the first time you had to drink that liquid, I know that liquid cleans you up and it makes you feel like crap, right? How did you deal with your kids? Like, did you tell your kids what was happening? Like, did you tell your kids, your dad is drinking this liquid, is going to clean me out, and this is what's going to happen? Or did you try to like sugarcoat it or hide it? Like, how did that work?
No. I mean, it was literally, I was telling them everything about it. It's like, why daddy going to the bathroom every 10 minutes for 6 hours straight?
Free the bathroom.
Truthfully, I think that's not a hard conversation, because it was not connected to a negative health outcome. I think if it had been a challenging, like if I was personally dealing with a health challenge and I was having to go through that, I may have had a different perspective on it, partly to keep myself boosted, but then the other part to not get them scared of all the stuff that daddy has to go through. So it was just, for me, more 100% just a diagnostic, just to kind of look, due to family history. So it really was not a hard conversation. But I think, but to your point, if there is a medical concern that you have, we have to do a better job of communicating at a level that our kids can understand what's really going on. Because to your point, I think it makes things challenging. I'm gonna give you a personal story. My father, he was one of 8, but my dad, he had 2 brothers that passed away when they were kids. And one of them unfortunately drowned. And then the other one that passed away when they were a kid, he ended up dying of leukemia. And so one of the things that my dad shared with me, and this is something we talked about not too long ago, probably like within the last 2 years, he said that his brother that passed away from leukemia, all along, they never knew how sick he was. So like my grandparents would, they said they knew their brother was kind of sick, but they didn't know it was cancer or leukemia or something that he could die from. And my dad said basically one day they woke up and he was dead in the bed right there. And it was, and again, from a trauma perspective, you're just like, yo, hold up. And one of the challenges was that they never told my dad and the siblings how sick the brother actually was. So it's just like, you didn't prepare anybody for what was really going on. And I know it's a tough conversation, and it doesn't have to be as drastic, but I think when we have tough things going on, we have to find ways on the level that our kids are. So at the age that they are and the way that they can comprehend things, we have to find ways to communicate things to them that they can understand, but we need to be truthful with them, because we can cause undue trauma by trying to hide it. And then something happens like, oh shit, we're like, dang, I didn't know it was like this. You know what I'm saying? And I think sometimes we do our kids a disservice, and by trying to protect them, and I agree with protecting them, but I also agree with being honest and communicating it in a way that they understand. But we have to be honest about stuff, or else, like you mentioned, now I got to have this conversation. And I'm like, dang, I've been hiding in this, like, all of a sudden, surprise, let me tell you. And, thankfully or prayerfully, your stuff is fine. But for others that may have to have some challenging conversations, we can't sugarcoat it, but we do need to give it to them in a level or on a level that they can understand. Don't talk to them like they're PhD students if they're 5.
No.
Like let's be legit.
You could bring it down a little bit, because even for me, like when I was thinking about my son, I was sitting in my car and I go, how am I going to tell him? Because my son is so swift and so nosy, right? Kids are freaking nosy as hell, right? Where he's going to know and he's going to ask, yo, why is dad waking up? Because dad don't wake up till like 8 o'clock. Mom takes us to school now. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting in the car and I'm like, yo, how am I going to explain this to him? Well, I'm not sure how I'm going to explain it to him, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to force myself to explain it to him. And the way I did that was I jumped in on Instagram and I started a story. It was like, yo, I do this thing where I jump in the car and I call it Uber Dad Sessions, where I sit there and I just give my thoughts about fatherhood sometimes, right? And that was my Uber Dad session. My Uber Dad session was, yo, I went to the doctor. This is, XYZ, these things happen. If you had 24 hours to live, what would you say? You know what I mean? That I know my son is going to watch Instagram. I know his friends are going to watch Instagram. Now that forces them or him to tell me, Dad, why did you go to the doctor today? Once he asked me, I can't sugarcoat it no more, or I can't hide from it anymore. You know what I mean? So now that opened me up, where it was like, now I'm ready for him to come to me. It's almost like I was playing mind games with myself, where I wasn't sure how I was going to approach it. So I kind of like passed the buck to him, where it was like, I'm going to show it to the world that this is happening because I know you're going to see it. And when you see it, you're going to come back to me and you're going to ask me, Dad, what's going on? Now I'm forced to tell you. And it worked. Like I was able to sit with him and tell him, Jaden, this is what's happening. This is the outcomes that could happen, what can't happen. I have a great chance of succeeding all of this. Like we should be good to go. You know what I mean? And I could see that it made him feel a little bit better. Like he was at ease. And he goes, so Dad, what if it doesn't go right? And I go, well, Jaden, if it doesn't go right, it's up to you and your brothers to take care of the family. And that's it. He knew exactly what I meant by that. And it was like, now that took us to another level where it's like, all right, let me make sure I'm still teaching them the right things.
Absolutely. But I'm gonna throw some. I wanted you to finish your comment, but I wanted to kind of go back to something, and I think this is the crux of it all. It's about us getting comfortable enough to have the conversation, because truth be told, our kids are resilient.
Yeah.
See, that's that, and I get so surprised when I talk to my kids and give them a concept and I'm thinking I'm about to go flying way over their head, and they come back with me and they're just like, yo, Dad, so thinking about it this way, I'm like, well, damn, hold up. Okay, we can go a little deeper then.
Yo, they are profound kids, man.
Yeah,
These kids are good.
It's crazy, man. But the thing is, I think a lot of it comes back to us. It's our discomfort with talking about it. It's our discomfort talking about potential negative outcomes. It's our discomfort talking about challenges or some what ifs that maybe it's only like a point something percent chance, but you still got to at least lay out that, it's not 100% guaranteed that this won't happen. But in the case that it does, here's what's popping. Like it's us having those conversations, and it's us being comfortable. Because that's the challenge, in my opinion, is really not the kids. Because, dude, they're so resilient, and they're so smart,
and they'll talk about anything. Yeah, they'll talk about anything, and they can. Yeah, and that was me. Like I know today, I dropped my kids off at school. I know today when my oldest comes home, he's gonna ask me, be like, yo, how did it go with the doctor? When's the operation? And it's almost like, all right, well, now since I can't just come out and just talk about it like that, he's gonna bring it to me. And it still leads me to that point of I'm going to keep it real with him, but it still gives me that energy where it's like the minute I finish a statement, I'm hugging them. You know what I mean? Where it's like I told him yesterday, Jaden, don't worry about it, man. I'm still going to be here for all the sneaker sales. I'm going to be waking up with you to buy sneakers and to sell them. And then I hug him and tell him, yo, I love you, buddy. And it was like almost like one of those situations where it wasn't really for him. It wasn't for him. It was for me. It was to put myself at ease, bro. Yes. You know what I mean? It was to put myself at ease. So I hugged him because I needed the hug. It wasn't that he needed the hug. I needed it. Where it was like, yo, it was like me telling myself, yo, James, man, it's been a rough couple days. You now know that, there is some positivity coming out of this. You're okay. But I couldn't ask anybody for that. I couldn't ask my wife to, yo, hug me. You know what I mean? I couldn't ask my kids to hug me. I needed to get it a different way. So, my message to dads is, yo, get it however you can, man.
Get it.
like just get it. You know what I mean?
Get
Like
it.
sometimes we a little too anal with it, where it's like, I don't want to show my kids my emotions. I don't want to be emotional. I don't want to show that side of me. And it's like, all right, cool. If you're like that, yo, flip it to your kids because they have no problem showing how much they care about you, man. That'll open you up. If you're not that type that's just gonna open up, let your kids open you up. That's me. I don't open up like that. My kids open me up, but you better believe that I guide them in the direction to open me up. I give them these little tidbits, you know what I mean?
But you realize that you need to be opened. See, that's like step one, like first step one of anything, recognize there's a problem, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you recognize that I need to be open. And you also recognize that you might not be the natural catalyst to opening yourself up. You need them to basically crack your shell. And I think guys that are out there, again, emotions are things that, like I always say, emotions can ride shotgun. You should never let them drive your car, right? They can ride shotgun, they can control the temperature, they can turn the radio, but don't let them drive the car, but definitely keep them there, right?
Yeah.
Emotions should be managed, and emotions are there for a reason, but you shouldn't let them overtake you. But the reality is you have to understand how your emotions present themselves. And so we all present differently. Like, I'm not one that necessarily needs someone else to be the catalyst. Like I can initiate it, right? Yeah. I need somebody to help me unpack it. You know what I'm saying? So I can initiate it. I get the party started. I get the conversation going. I can lead with how I'm feeling and all of that stuff. But I need some discourse back and forth to help me draw it out even more, because that's how, for me, that's like my process. So I can go and I can initiate the hug or initiate the kiss and be like, yo, fam, I need somebody to holler at me. Like I'm that one. I will initiate that part, but I can't take it to the next level without some discourse. So I need help then pulling more out.
So just so you know, you've been used. You've been used today. Yeah. And the reason you've been used today is because when I came out of my doctor's appointment, the only thing I wanted to do, full transparencies for the podcast, right? The only thing I wanted to do was sit in my car and smoke my head off. All I kept telling myself was, you're going to smoke like crazy and forget about the world, right? But then I remembered, hey, I got a discussion with Mike D today. I also have meetings with my team that we're working on my Fatherhood is Lit app. I can't smoke my head off. So I'm not going to cancel any of these things because I can't. So I'm going to use Mike in the best way, quote unquote. Right. I'm going to use Mike in the best way.
Use me.
And we're going to have this conversation that I'm sure a lot of fathers would love to have or have had and didn't know the true value of it. You know what I mean? So I used you to be able to speak about what's going on with my life and how I see it affecting my kids or how I'm going to go forward. So thank you.
And I thank you because I used you as well, because our discourse allowed that to get pulled out of me. So it's kind of like a yin and a yang. Like you need the catalyst, you need the jump off. I need the pull through. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, one's the starter and the other's the alternator. You know what I'm saying? Like and I think that's awesome. And what I would like to also, let the community know is just like, at some point, you and I are going to have some more opportunities for these types of discourse conversations to take place in a more controlled environment so that dads can be free to share themselves and share what's going on, to get some insight from kind of our yin and yang approach. And hopefully that'll lead them to being better men, better fathers, better husbands, taking better actions in life, just walking in purpose. That's the whole thing. And us coming together, this collab, in my opinion, leads to that. And our mission is to really help dads be the best dads that they can be in a holistic sense. So more of this is coming on a lot of different levels. So y'all definitely stay tuned till we do it for our kids.
That's right. And I just want to thank you for this conversation, man, because I'm gonna be very honest with you. I know the camera can't catch it like that, but my eyes are watery, bro. And they're watery because of all the things that it's happiness. It's not sadness. It's like, all right, I've been to the doctor 3 days in a row. We're clear to go. Now we're just going to go solve this problem. But the happiness is that now I know my family knows. Keeping that in, whoo, that thing was brutal, man, because it was like, when am I going to tell them? And what am I going to do? Just go to the hospital, have to spend 3 nights there, and then call them from the hospital and be like, yo, dad hasn't been home because of such and such. That's a horrible way to do it. You know what I mean? So it was like my eyes got watered because it's finally over. The process is just beginning. But that process of hiding it from the family is gone.
It's over.
Now I could actually look at them and say, yo, what we doing tonight, man? We got practice. You better shoot those J's, because if you don't shoot those J's, dad is going to kick that ass.
There it is. There it is.
You know what I mean? So thank you, man. And to the community, Mike is right, man. We're going to get together. We're going to do something probably on Patreon. We're going to set up this community effect for us, where we could come in as a community, as dads, be vulnerable, be able to talk to each other on our platform. And we're going to keep it there, where we're not going to go out there and tell the world about you, unless that's what you want. If you want to use yourself as a catalyst to help another father, by all means, let us know. We'll do that. We got no problem doing that. But for now, when we have these conversations, they're going to be locked in somewhere where you could get your shit off, right? Where you could talk your stuff and not worry about being judged or anything. We're just going to be there to help. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to do a Zoom soon. I think end of the month. We'll have a date for you guys and everything.
That's right. There's something's coming soon. So y'all pay attention. And I'm going to also encourage you all, please subscribe to this YouTube, subscribe to the podcast. Again, Fatherhood is Lit podcast. This drops on Coach Mike D's YouTube page. This drops, man, continue to share this thing out. Dude, if you're listening to this, you should share this thing out with at least 10 to 15 of your homeboys, especially those that are dads, potential dads. This thing needs to be out there, because this conversation that we just had goes deep, and it's going to help somebody to become a better man, to possibly live a little bit longer, right? Yeah. Because they need to have these conversations, but then also help to galvanize the community that they have around them. Look, share this thing out. I want you to share this thing. I'm asking you, 20 people, 20 of your homeboys, pass this thing on. Thank you.
Yeah. And the good thing about sharing as well, just to top that off, is that you don't got to tell us. You don't gotta tag us on a post. You don't gotta repost it on your Instagrams. None of that. Yo, text your friend. Text a father that you care about, yo. Text them. You might have not texted them the whole year. Text them now and tell them, yo, these fellas got our back, yo. Let them know. That's it.
That's it.
Keep making your presence felt. Fatherhood is lit.
There you go. Black Fathers Now. We're bringing the village to the brothers, no doubt. Y'all have a blessed one. We holla at you. Peace.
For sure.